know that everybody on stage certainly can, so that's good, but we'd rather not just be talking to ourselves. Welcome to this webinar. Thanks for joining us, and also thank you for finding your way through the links process this morning. I apologise to everybody if that was a little bit last minute. First up, we are going to run through introductions, but I do very much want to invite you all just to participate in this. We really do see it as a conversation, and although we couldn't get 15, 20 people up on the stage, because that's just what a Teams call looks like, I'm really keen to have some thoughts and some comments and some conversations and discussions here. We are recording the webinar. I hope that's okay. Keep your head down if not, but what we're going to look to do is continue the conversation on some of the social frames afterwards. So without too much more preamble from me, a quick introduction. So my name's Mark Moore. I'm the CEO for the Cyber Resilience Centre for the South West region. It's a Home Office funded network. I've got a colleague from elsewhere in Wales who will introduce himself very shortly. And we are funded by Policing in the Home Office to look after small businesses and charities free of charge, because it's a huge risk for them, this whole issue. So we're really interested to talk about whether they're getting the right insurances and how we might reach out and do more to help them, together with you guys, quite frankly. Can I move across the screen? And Tom, perhaps if you'd introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name's Tom. I run an insurance brokerage called Simcox Brokers. We're based down in Bristol, and we specialise in commercial, professional indemnity and cyber insurance.
Thanks, Tom. Emma.
Hi, I'm Emma Francis. I'm a financial risks executive at Carroll Insurance Brokers. So a risk management company based throughout South Wales and London.
Brilliant, thanks Emma. Next on my screen at least is Sean's.
Hi, hello everyone. Sean Worrell from BIBA, British Insurance Brokers Association, where I'm the policy lead for cyber.
Thanks, Sean. And Henry.
Hi there, yeah, Henry Haystead. I work at Ratcliffe Insurance based in Cheltenham. We're a general insurance broker, and yeah, we also specialise in cyber.
Great. Thanks, Henry. And lastly, Paul.
Yeah, good afternoon. My name is Paul Peters. I'm a detective superintendent from South Wales Police, but my full-time role is, as does Mark, is managing the Cyber Resilience Centre. In my circumstances, is the Cyber Resilience Centre for Wales, there to support businesses and organisations across Wales.
Brilliant. Thanks, folks. So look, I'm going to open things up with an invitation to jump on the chat, because I know there are a few of you in the room, so please don't be shy. I suppose the overarching question from today is, why is cyber insurance not selling? Because it probably isn't. You know this, and I suspect it's why many of you might be on the call. 7% of small businesses have their own discrete cyber insurance. Slightly larger people get it on top of something else. But there probably is a gap between the risk and actually the cover that people are having. So I'm really interested in your views. We all are. It'd be great to talk around some of those. We had an earlier webinar, which some of you might have seen, which explored some of what we think might be the issues. And today's event is about trying to work together to find some solutions. And the first of those was that we wonder whether it's simply that small businesses don't understand the reality of the risk here. So I'm going to invite some comments on that, if I might, first of all. Emma, if I can give you the mic first. And what's your experience about small and medium-sized businesses in this sector? What are they missing in terms of the information that would push them over the line?
Yeah, I think in the SME sector, when you're having a conversation about cyber risk, I think sometimes it just needs relating specifically to that business, to that area, so they understand the risk that's facing them. What we find, I think even just the word cyber insurance doesn't really mean much to that specific sector. I mean, they're business owners, business people, but they're not technology specialists. So I think the language sometimes can be a bit more complex than it needs to be, and just breaking the cyber insurance dialogue down into, your risk is data breaches, business interruption, ransomware. This is what can happen. What will you do if this will happen? And talking about it in that language, I think, can sometimes help. You know, a lot of what we read in the press as well will be large organisations suffering breaches. It won't necessarily be the SME sector, and we all know that they do get affected by these breaches, non-targeted, but they don't read and they don't hear about it all the time. So they think, you know, this isn't going to happen to us, which, you know, isn't the case at all.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm interested in the point you pick up there around cyber and you know, whether that turns them off. Paul, what's been your experience about terminology in that SME market? What works best?
I totally agree with Emma. The word cyber, I think, puts people off, and I think there's a lack of understanding about what the word means, and everybody thinks, you know, that's for the techie person to sort of, you know, deal with all that side of things. But actually, you know, some of the messaging we try and put out is it's not for the techie person necessarily. You know, we're talking about things like passwords or recognizing a phishing email, and that's, you know, that's really basic stuff which everybody needs to sort of be cited on, be aware about, and also a realization which I think a lot of SMEs don't really sort of see, is that when we're talking about cyber, you know, we're talking about things that everybody does. So accessing their social media for marketing potentially, well, that falls into that great big sort of cyber term. So it's a lack of understanding, I think, as to the relevance of it. And I think that's the big challenge, is to get SMEs sort of understanding that and putting those simple steps in place to, you know, improve their resilience to an attack, which, and certainly from the conversations I have, you know, those attacks are regular. Many businesses do see them. And, you know, the majority of those attacks could be prevented from simple steps.
So, Tom, I'm interested because I know you've had these conversations with a number of clients. So I suppose I've got a theory that potentially this just feels a bit like a sales conversation, that, you know, we'd like you to buy a product rather than there is a risk. Is that genuine? Is this perceived as a bolt-on or a nice to have, where people don't really think that it applies to them? Because as Emma says, it, you know, maybe it's big businesses that we see in the press.
Yeah, I think, I mean, if you're looking at obviously the other insurance policies which are now excluding cyber, I think if it's becoming, you know, as I said before, it shouldn't really be. I don't think it should be a bolt-on or a sort of nice to have or a sales process, but it should be. It really should be part of what the business wants. But it's, as you're going back to, it's trying to educate businesses on where their risk is really. So I think once you get I think the initial sales bit has to be done in terms of like trying to explain what cyber insurance is as a product in simple layman's terms, and then getting to kind of understand, you know, the next stage is to understand what the business's cyber risks are, and each business is, you know, everyone's different, isn't there, in terms of how their business runs and where they perceive their cyber risk, and why they're buying why they're buying it. So yeah, that's what I think on that.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Henry, what's your experience been over at Ratcliffe's then, in terms of you know, client desire to actually pick up on this? Because I think we all share the view that this is something that's really genuine. I suppose my honest perspective is that, you know, as somebody coming outside this, people just see cyber as quite sales driven in many ways, whether it's not just the insurance conversations, but the protection conversations. And that, you know, if they don't get somebody independent, then they're just a bit suspicious about the whole thing. Is that a reality or not?
Yeah, I think it most definitely is. And I think the main problem is there's a lack of knowledge, even at broker level as well, which doesn't help, that doesn't pass down to client level. So, I mean, you know, at client level, everybody nowadays is using IT to a certain extent, whether it's cloud storage, emails, online banking, even websites, etc., etc. So, you know, everybody has got a vulnerability. I think one of the main ways that you get people to understand that a risk is there is by hard-hitting facts, you know, whether they come from the insurers, the brokers, or guys like yourselves at the cyber resilience centres, or even the Chamber of Commerce's, things like that. But yeah, we need to get it across to the clients that it's not just the large organisations, it's the small and medium-sized enterprises as well. So yeah, it's definitely a threat for everyone.
I want to come on to Sean in a minute potentially, but Paul, I'm just spotting a comment that's dropped into chat from Colin around the number of cyber incidents that relate to human error. So what do you see as sort of the education role, and how do you help with that? You're on mute, forgive me.
Yeah, sorry. From a centre perspective, yeah. So I suppose my background is in investigating cybercrime, and the vast majority of cybercrime results as a result of poor password hygiene and not recognising phishing emails. So for me, they're the two things which we really try and focus on. And if people improve their password security by having a strong and unique sort of password, and then, you know, certainly on your key accounts, consider putting in two-factor authentication or multi-factor authentication. Immediately, you know, that lowers your risk to these attacks being successful. But phishing emails, because I think, you know, with the advent of AI and things like that, the way they're being crafted is far more difficult to spot. And we need to be alert to that. And the key thing there is just to raise awareness. So everybody in your organization is cited on how to recognize a phishing email. So, yeah, I mean, we obviously talk about other areas of business at the centre, but for me, they're two really key things.
Yeah, and I think so digital, not cyber, is something that we're picking up on already, and the importance of those people issues as well. Sean, what's your view about that kind of industry overview? I guess is this too complex, too technical a piece? Is that one of the issues here?
I think the IT security jargon definitely doesn't help. And I mean, there are some good glossaries out there now. And even us as Beaver, when we were putting out our last cyber guide, we had 3 or 4 pages of what the different terms around it meant, which was kind of strange for that sort of public guidance type document. But I'd go back to what a cyber attack actually does and making people more aware of that. So how devastating a cyber attack can be on any size business to stop you trading, as well as the legal implications, the breach implications, but particularly for SMEs as well. And to Henry's point about facts and case studies, you know, I read something only yesterday that 61% of SMEs have suffered a cyber attack. So that's well over half already should be familiar with what it can do. And then you talk to some of the insurers and they will tell you up to 96% of all cyber attacks are directed at SMEs. So it's not how valuable you are, it's how vulnerable you are. And cyber criminals are looking for the kind of soft spots and the easiest and fastest way to be successful like that. But I think it is, you know, back to the basics all the time. What does a cyber attack mean for your business? And how it will stop you trading, and then how do you deal with that and help with solutions for that?
Yeah, and I guess for a moment, my hope is that something that the Cyber Resilience Centre, Paul and myself, might be able to support with on this is to bring in that police-led perspective that says, look, this is a threat. It genuinely does impact on you. This is what the figures look like, and actually, we're not here to sell that policy. So, you know, maybe somebody that can act as an honest broker, forgive the term, it can actually be the intermediary that helps move people along the line. I mean, interested, and I'd be really interested in comments from attendees. You know, is the real question here, that the real objection for small businesses is just, I don't think I need it? And because that's often the thing why people don't buy insurance, I imagine. I'm sure I'll be fine, cross fingers. Or are there more practical objections like, well, actually the IT requirement to become safe is too prohibitive in cost terms, or I can't sign up to this form because I don't understand the jargon around it. So I'll be really interested to understand some of those objections that others might be coming across, if there are any. So please do put thoughts in the chat on that. I don't know if any of the panel have got any observations on that side.
Yeah, Mark, just on the vulnerability point that Sean raised, just to sort of hopefully try and bring it to life, but a little while back, we engaged with a business, and they said, yeah, we'll become a member of the Cyber Resilience Centre for Wales, and his terminology was, I'll join your membership because it's free. But who's going to attack a sole trader, or I think he used a one-man band in Carmarthen? And then 3 months later, he contacted me to sort of say, yeah, I've been hit. All my, well, he didn't have backups. So all his hard drives had been encrypted, and could we help? And because he was of the view that coming from a small country and being a sole trader, the likelihood of an attack was so remote, he didn't need to worry about it. But as Sean says, the vulnerability existed, and that meant he was attacked, and that interrupted his business continuity for quite some weeks until he was able to sort of get himself back on his feet. So it really does sort of hit home when you sort of talk to micro businesses like that and sole traders like that have suffered that.
So maybe there's a piece there where we can support colleagues in the wider insurance sector just around publicising that kind of stuff, passing on those case studies and those stories of what we've seen happening to try and convince people. So, Tom, when we
I was chatting to a chat the other day, actually, quite a few people I know, and obviously they run small businesses, and I think a lot of them. I think a lot of it depends on like the data that's being held by the business. I was chatting to a video production company, and he was like, well, I'm not that bothered about the data because we don't really hold any confidential data. It's all backed up. But then, the argument potentially is, well, the repercussions of that data, if that still gets in the wrong hands, what's the ICO fines, penalties, that sort of thing. So there's that risk. But I think that where it did hit home was the cybercrime, the actual like theft of money from your bank account from a cyber breach. And that's where he picked it up on. And then I think other businesses you talk to, some of the charities where they're they're healthcare organisations, they've got highly sensitive, confidential data. That's their worry that could get into the wrong hands, and obviously holding financial information. So, yeah, I think it varies quite between businesses really, and what they perceive the risk as.
Yeah. I mean, there's something about making a number of different cases here, aren't we? Sorry, and I'll come to you in a moment if you're playing. Something about, first of all, the data security piece and the ICO. But if you think you haven't got data, then there's a separate conversation around what if your screen goes black, and if that's not an issue for you, then there's probably another conversation about what if you make a bank payment to the wrong place, because actually that cyber thing is a number of different strands, isn't it? Which you hope to see covered. And it's sometimes having that case study around each of those, or that understanding the angle to go back to them with, maybe. Emma, sorry.
Yeah, I was just having a look at the chat, and what I hear is reflected in the chat, really. So the number one reason being it's not going to happen to me, and it's just having that conversation is that these attacks generally aren't targeted, and it does happen to SMEs, and just given case studies can help, but it is still difficult. Then you've got about price and budgeting that crops up as well. I think cyber insurance has come a long way. You can get policies now for a few hundred, a few £1,000, and the price of not having one can be so costly. So it's having that conversation and giving those examples of the costs that we've seen when a breach happens. We talk about cyber risk, but there's liability, business interruption, ransom. When you stack it all up, the legal costs, IT threat, it's really, really costly to businesses. Things they necessarily wouldn't even think about until it's happened. And one that just cropped up there, which I didn't mention earlier, but we often see is sometimes clients rely blindly on their outsourced providers, their managed service providers, when they aren't actually experts in the field of cyber security. They update, they patch their systems, or they might give them a service, but they're not necessarily geared towards responding to a cyber incident. And that's when you need that insurance policy and that specialist, because you do see them relying, blindly on these providers when the worst happens. They're not necessarily geared towards that response. That's not their role. That's not their function.
Yeah, I'd certainly say I've seen that a great deal, that somebody that is an MSP and will sell you a Microsoft license is a long way from being a cybersecurity expert. But for the client, it all looks and feels the same. So, Tom, I know you and I have had some conversations around this. I'm interested to bring them back into the main group here around actually just complexities about those insurance forms when they arrive with a client. I don't understand what 2FA is, what 2SV is, what do I need to do? Is that right? Oh my gosh, it all just looks too difficult. How do you think the sector is doing in terms of that communication piece, and how easy is it as a small business to actually understand what you're signing up for and to take out a policy?
Well, I don't think it's that particularly easy. I think but I think at the end of the day, there's a lot of information that you can find out, can't you? And you can just Google what's 2FA and find that out. So I think we're pretty lucky in that way. But I think sometimes it does, when as soon as you've gauged the interest, and then either the statement of fact or the one-page questionnaire comes along, and then it can either go very quiet for a few weeks, or you won't get that form back very quickly. But then again, it's very sector specific, because certain companies, they'll use MSPs and they'll fire that questionnaire back straight away. But I think a lot of businesses that either don't have an MSP or they're using IT internally probably still struggle to find those answers. And I think that we've definitely found that with some clients, a number of clients, on why they haven't bought that, because of that issue. And then you sort of give them contact details, or you say speak to this company at that point. But at the end of the day, you can't push it, can you? You can only let people make their own decisions and give them that kind of support.
So Henry, have you found that kind of conversion rate? I guess somebody got the policy through somebody signing the dotted line.
Yeah, I think what I'd say is, in years gone by, you used to have like minimum premiums of £5,000, for example, for a cyber policy. But now, a lot of our major insurers are now doing very affordable cyber policies for the small and medium-sized businesses. And if you do read through the prop forms and IPIDs, it is genuinely pretty jargon-free. And if jargon is involved, it's well explained. So if you do pick the right insurer, you can actually make it understandable for your clients and yourself if you're not too comfortable with that area of insurance.
That's really helpful and quite encouraging as well. Paul, I want to bring you in for what might just end up being a 30-second pitch, which is fine. But what's the role of the CRC in terms of demystifying that? So when confused client gets a bit of paper, where do you help?
Well, we do sort of try and pride ourselves on having that non-jargon approach. We're there, we're accessible to people. Certainly when you sign up for membership, we will provide a half-hour, I call it a consultation, but it's about talking through some of the real basics and helping to understand any sort of terminology or any sort of queries or concerns that the member may have. And then we remain accessible to people. So, one of the things we do is a monthly newsletter. We've got a section in there which we encourage people to write in and say, ask us a question, and then we'll look to explain it within our newsletter. And whenever we sort of present, really try and sort of make things really simple. And it is difficult because there is so much terminology out there, even, two-factor and multi-factor authentication. There's two terms there straight away, which I appreciate people might not understand in the first instance, but we'll take the time to sort of explain that through whether it be a presentation through newsletters or consultation.
Thanks, what's helpful. Sean, on the sort of industry-wide perspective, is it becoming easier? We might come back to this, but I guess I sort of have a view that there are more products out there that might require me to do less, because built into them is we will assess your risk and quote on that business. So there's an expert doing it for me, and I'm less required to get into the weeds myself and tell you what my systems look like. Is that a direction of travel?
I think as people get more familiar with cyber insurance and what it does, then I think that definitely helps. And as we've said, with the number of attacks on SMEs, they will become more familiar with some of that. And as the brokers on the panel here have shown, There's good information if you ask. I think maybe what you're referring to is where with a number of cyber insurers now, they will offer threat monitoring and vulnerability scanning as a standard part of your insurance package. So that's doing a lot of the kind of IT security work in the background, but I would say that's a complementary part. It's not all you need to do. So your MSP, if you have one, or if you have somebody in IT in the business, still needs to be doing that other IT security work to support that. But as we know, I speak to a number of people who've had ransomware attacks, and some of the time that's a 0-day vulnerability. So they've had good layered IT security, and there was a flaw in the original software design in some of that, and the hacker exploited that, and the black screen appeared, as you say. So for me, where cyber insurance has changed, it's gone far beyond cyber liability or an indemnity product, is into how all the incident response services actually work. So I kind of think I would always want it in my business, because if it goes wrong, I can talk to somebody, and at that point, talking to people who suffer attacks, at that point, you got like 100 voices talking to you, but you need some clarity and you need some help. And the insurance incident response teams will do that. So, how do I deal with my customers? How do I deal with the ICO? I haven't got backup. Do I need to make a decision on whether I need to pay a ransom or not? All of those things, you've got people there to discuss that with you in a kind of calm sort of manner, so you can then make good decisions. So I think cyber insurance now is expanded into a service, both upfront and through the incident response. So as well as the financial recovery element. And the business interruption bit is another bit. So your increased costs of working as a result of a cyber attack, hugely important. So maybe the discussion moves to definitely not a bolt-on, but when you're having that business interruption discussion about a fire, a theft, those sorts of things, physical things can happen to your business. You also have that discussion about the digital side of it and how that can be as damaging, if not more.
And so for those that are, doing that brokerage piece around the table here, how much has the conversation changed in recent years then? So this is quite fast moving stuff, and it can be quite confusing, particularly for a client who walks in through the door. I guess there's a risk that everybody here is moderately expert and certainly really interested in this stuff. In some cases, very expert in this stuff. But is that more widely reflected within your contemporaries out there? If I walk into a high street broker, am I likely to find somebody that understands cyber and the digital risk, or maybe just somebody that's reverting to the more traditional risks? I honestly don't know, and I'm interested. And I'd be interested from the audience as well as to whether, candidly, this is an agenda which they're really comfortable with or not. Thoughts from anybody on how the wider industry is looking?
I mean, personally, I can't talk for all the other brokers, but the general impression that I get is that the wider insurance broker market, the knowledge levels are not great, no. But, the help is there from your general composites, such as, Aviva, AXA, etc. They have got specialists that will speak to you. They will run training sessions, for your staff, if you are, for your brokerage, if you're owner of a broker, etc.
Which is a really helpful offer if you're not aware of that, I think. Interesting comment from Adam in the margins that apparently a third of brokers don't even offer cyber, which I know from my reading, I think the Chartered Institute of Internal Auditors puts this at the biggest risk for business for about 6 years in a row now.
I think it also reflects, I think it reflects specialisms as well. So you look across the broking community, and you will have certain brokers who specialize in financial risks, property risks, etc. So I think probably cyber is no different to that, and it's following that pattern. So there will be specialists who devote more time to it, more resources, and then I think I think as long as there's good information out there for the non-specialists so that they can refer to reliable products, and there's a lot of good products out there. Obviously, a broker can go whole of market to see all of those products and make a recommendation that's suitable for his client or her client, I should say. So I'm not worried that not 100% of brokers are actively engaged. As I say, I think it's specialism, horses for courses, really.
Emma, go on, please.
Yeah, I think, everyone on here isn't, talks about cyber insurance, got interest in it, hence we're on the call. As brokers, we want to protect our clients. So when we're talking to our clients about insurance, there's mandatory insurance, obviously they have to take, but when we're talking about their risks to their business, I mean, technology now just is such a pivotal role in all business. I think over the years, everyone's become so used to insuring their traditional risks. It's just updating, our insurance portfolios now to reflect the risks that face us today. And, everyone uses technology to different levels. And some businesses are still catching up with that. And some businesses are still catching up with cybersecurity generally and cyber insurance generally as well. So it's just education, keeping it on the agenda and making sure that we're tackling it. That prevention piece is so vital. But, you've got all these controls in place, something will happen at some point. We've mentioned human error already. So you can do, you might have a really secure platform. However, it's someone just making a mistake. And that's when the cyber insurance comes into place. It's just, protecting your client by discussing the risks that face them today, maybe.
So if there are brokers that might be less expert in this and others within the community that are more expert, what's the kind of support process there? So Henry, Tom, if there are people maybe in the margins here that aren't that comfortable with cyber, is there a way in which you support them?
I think, well, from our perspective, we obviously do speak to other brokers, and I mean, other brokers will come to us on cases and which they're struggling to place. We'd always try and encourage, if it's a small premium and there's not much to it, then they're better off just going direct to the insurer, or you going telling them which ones to go to, because you've got to have, with the wholesale broking or whatever, you have minimum sort of premiums to make a business work, and but that obviously does depend on how set up you are as a business. So you can't obviously speak for every broker. But yeah, I think that support, and I think as well, I mean, encouraging. I don't know, I obviously don't work for other brokers, but there's a lot of webinars and a lot of seminars from insurers going on that, and I suppose I would always encourage people to join seminars, and if they're not comfortable selling the product themselves, maybe speak to other brokers, or speak to, as you say, speak to insurers directly before they feel comfortable. There's a lot, there's a lot there. I think a lot of information, and there's a lot of support, I think, to do that.
Thanks, Tom. That's helpful. Henry, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, if a broker is worried about mis-selling a product such as cyber, that they'd be better to at least get some form of cyber cover in place. Some cover is better than none, and the products that the composites provide usually are pretty all encapsulating, even from the lower premium end of the scale. So yeah, I mean, some cover is better than no cover, I would say, especially for the sake of you as a broker, and maybe missing out on providing cover for your client in a certain area, which will be extremely detrimental to you as a business.
So talking a little bit more about how the current market looks, which I certainly don't pretend to be an expert on. That's why everybody else is here. But Paul, can I start with you at the low end? Because I want to kick things off with a quick overview of what Cyber Essentials is and what that brings, and then maybe we'll move that into a conversation about where that fits. So I know one of our audience, Jeremy, gives me scrolled off screen and said, look, we mostly deal with really small clients, cafes, shops, tradesmen, and they've got a limited amount of knowledge. And so where does the cyber essentials piece fit into that, and what does that bring?
Yeah, thanks, Mark. So Cyber Essentials is basically a government-backed scheme. It's there to sort of help you protect your organisation. It applies to lots of different sizes of organisation and is costed appropriately for the size. And basically, it provides you some sort of resilience against the most common cyber attacks. So I think one way of describing it is it's the digital equivalent of or preventing a thief trying a front door to see if it's unlocked. So Cyber Essentials, if you qualify for that, there's Cyber Essentials and Cyber Essentials Plus. So Cyber Essentials is a self questionnaire. Cyber Essentials Plus, which involves some extra cost, involves a third party coming in and actually checking whether everything is in place. But I think, Cyber Essentials provides you with a certification that in itself should reassure customers that you're working to secure your IT against a cyber attack. Also, in some circumstances, such as government contracts, they actually require that you do have Cyber Essentials certification. And then with that certification, you have the option of insurance up to £25,000 worth indemnity. It's worth noting that insurance doesn't cover money stolen by electronic means or cyber fraud. And also £25,000 might sound a lot when it's sort of initially said, but actually whether or not that's sufficient for a sort of for a lot of the cyber attacks is questionable. It's probably only sufficient for a small breach or incident. So certainly from my perspective, you may be considering taking out a separate policy of cyber insurance and not necessarily just relying on Cyber Essentials. But if you're a small enough business, that might be an option.
Yeah, interested in views from others. Is this not a useful product? Let's be honest. 25,000. Does that help move people off the ground, or should they simply be moving towards the insurance market straight off the bat? Emma, did you want to jump in?
Well, I think Cyber Essentials generally, anything that allows you to have the conversation with the client around what they're doing is a positive. So Cyber Essentials is definitely positive. And it is that essential layer of protection that they should be having. And obviously you go into Cyber Essentials Plus and everything else. With regards to the insurance, it is a minimal level. I think, 25,000, most businesses perhaps could afford that. And they're not actually then insuring the risks that they can't afford to have. So that's where we need to be educated, because a lot of them don't actually. They think, we've got free insurance with Cyber Essentials, and they don't actually read further than that. Sometimes you get that a lot, we got some free insurance. But yes, I suppose it's there to help you have a conversation, and it's there to improve their controls, which is a positive.
Thanks, it's helpful. Sean, can I come to you just cheekily, bit of a helicopter view then? What does the marketplace look like, and where are the gaps, and how's it moving at the moment?
With regard to Cyber Essentials?
With regards to wider cyber policies, really. So, am I really well covered if I'm a large business with a degree of complexity? Is that same offer available to me if I'm a smaller business? How are things shifting? We've spoken about some of those threat monitoring services, some of the complex questionnaires that might be brought out. It's that overall kind of shape of what the market's like.
Yeah, I think brokers are very good with all risks, including cyber, of finding suitable cover for that business. So brokers will have a conversation, whether you're a small client or maybe a larger, more complex one, to find something that is going to work with you and reflects your risks and asks the questions about how the business might be performing differently. Are you going down a different new business angle with the business? So what exposures does this have physically, digitally? So, and there are products there to suit all shapes and sizes. For very large businesses, If you wanted excessive loss layers, they're now available in cyber too. So, if I don't want to insure £1 million, but I want to insure 30-40 million pounds worth of risk, that's available, and brokers can advise there too. So, I think it is about confidence, and I'd go back to that. Not every broker needs to be a specialist, but have the conversation with your client, and then go from there, because that advice, whether from insurers or more generally, that guidance is available to hold your hand and take you to the right place. So have the conversation, but I think we're not expecting brokers to be IT security experts, but to understand the exposures and then find solutions for those exposures.
Yeah, thank you. That's helpful. So have you, maybe Emma, if I come to you, have you found examples of what good looks like in terms of those policies? So are there things that maybe put people off moving on to next steps, but maybe there are policies which are friendlier where you see a higher success rate? Or is that a how long is a piece of string question?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the size of your organisation, the complexity of the forms that they need to complete. So you can have, longer proposal forms for larger organisations, but they've usually got, someone within the organisation that's perhaps geared towards it or specialists themselves in the area. But there are, products out there geared towards the SME market, which it does make the process much easier now for SMEs to get cover. To be quite straightforward question sets for them to complete. So that is available now.
That's really helpful. Tom, what's your experience been? I know you've dealt a lot of that end of the market too.
I think mirroring what Emma says, really, I think you can't. It depends on the size of the client, or there's lots of factors in terms of the complexity of it. But in terms of, getting quotes is pretty straightforward now. Sort of most online systems can take up to sort of 50 million turnover on some businesses, so it's quite straightforward. There's definitely easier ways of some insurers explaining things easier, and that obviously makes makes it an easier conversation with the client. But I think it can kind of, I think there's so much conversation there. I think probably there's a lot of words. It can get a bit wordy. So I think we could definitely make it a bit more. That's what that covers in layman's terms, without all the jargon. So.
Yeah, and hopefully we can come into the middle and support with some of that.
Yeah, I think going on from that, I think that's the Cyber Resilience Centre is probably these organisations like yourselves are probably really important to do that. To use that resource, maybe more important than insurance brokers in that respect.
I'm not going to say that, but I'll slip you the fiver.
Well, in terms of speaking, you're out speaking about businesses.
Of course. So I'm going to come to Henry and ask Henry for your help with the comment from Colin, just to seek your views, really, because I don't understand it, because I don't understand all of the language around the insurance sector. But Colin's talking about, if you can see his comment, the market's much more stable now due to improved LR, and it's a good time to consider CI. CI is likely to have short cycles, which will be a challenge for brokers to manage. So I need you to translate that for me, first of all, and then I'm interested in offering a view so that we can do some kind of participative conversation here. Any thoughts, or have I just given you a hospital pass?
No, not really. I mean, I've just read it myself. Good time to consider cyber insurance. I mean, yeah, his comment is basically saying it's a good time to consider it, but I think it's something that's got to be considered probably from 2 years ago. But even if brokers weren't really, bringing it up in conversations back then, I think all brokers from now on they need to get with the cyber insurance scheme of things. And I think, all of us need to be offering the service. So, with regard to, is it a good time or not? I don't particularly think it's good or bad, just that it needs doing. And I think just going back to the whole scenario of, are we offering it, aren't we offering it? I think the main thing, it comes down to education, which I think we've all said, it needs more education at all levels, whether that's insurers to brokers or brokers to clients or CRCs to clients and businesses. It's just across the board. Everybody needs to be more aware. That's my overall opinion of it.
Thanks, Henry. I think we've. Sorry, Emma, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on that really, because I think education's just come up so much throughout this, that it just goes to show, doesn't it, that the Cyber Resilience Centre, the insurance markets, cybersecurity companies, whoever it might be that's talking about the risk, it's a big education piece, and just need a clear, consistent message from everyone really, isn't it? Because obviously the SMEs aren't, getting, they're not purchasing enough cyber insurance, or they're not engaging in cyber security companies. It's a theme that's across everyone dealing with this. So it's just picking up on that really, that just education from all sectors is important.
Yeah, agree absolutely. And just to keep banging the same drum, if we can support that, we're already funded to do that. So if wheeling in a quasi-policing badge that says you need to take this seriously can help in terms of a number of clients, and we're absolutely there for that, to talk to them about the cyber threat that they do genuinely face, because we want them to be safe from that for the same reasons that you do, and indeed, having taken out a policy, not to claim on it for the same reasons that you do. So yeah, I think that there is a real kind of shared agenda here. So look, I'm going to start rounding things up, because I think at lunchtime, and bless everybody's come together at lunchtime, it would be nice to give people 5 minutes back to go and grab a bite to eat before the next Zoom/Teams call. But I'm just going to run around the table if I can, at least metaphorically rather than literally, and just ask for any sort of closing thoughts that you might have in terms of practical solutions that we can offer, or things that might be needed to try and improve this. And we're very happy to carry on those conversations afterwards. So Tom, if I come to you first for any closing thoughts, and I'd welcome any that people want to put into the comments too. Tom.
I think just from reading a lot of the messages on here, I think just conversations, just keep talking. Everyone, talk to clients about it. I don't use the word sales, but it's it's a conversation, and I think as the whole cyber ecosystem as a whole is there's a lot of components, there's a lot of people in it, and you're all there's a lot of collaboration with that, and I think that comes through brokers, MSPs, bodies like yourselves. So I just think keep the conversations up. It's emerging, it's always changing, things are always happening, it's new, it's so quick, it's evolving so quickly. So yeah, keep talking is mine.
Thanks, Tom. Sean, can I come to you?
Yeah, I definitely echo that, and I would say have the confidence to engage, whether that's with your client, whether that's with an insurer, whether that's with an organisation like BIBA. There is a lot of good information out there, so continue to engage on it. I would also say it's one of the only policies you can buy where you benefit without having to make a claim. So if you buy one of the policies with the security services with it, they work so you don't have to make a claim, hopefully.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, which is a good start to a sales pitch, not that it's necessarily about selling.
An engagement pitch.
Exactly, far better. Henry, thoughts from you?
Yeah, just going back to that point, what you buy from the insurers now isn't just a policy, it's a service, and an excellent one at that. At 3 a.m, it'd be there for you should you need it. The other point I'd make is, the threat is real. As we think we're getting better at protecting against cyber risks, the cyber criminals are becoming even more advanced. So, we need to stay with the game. There's bots running that cyber criminals put on the web all the time, looking for vulnerabilities permanently with small businesses, medium, probably more so small and medium now as the larger businesses have become more protected. So, yeah, it's probably even more pertinent for the smaller and medium businesses to now have protection. But yeah, it's we just need to, as we said before, educate and hopefully get people covered.
Brilliant. Thanks, Henry. Emma.
Yeah, just echoing what everyone said, really, just keeping cyber risk on the agenda. It is it's a fundamental risk that business face, and it's up to us really to keep talking about it, just keeping it on the agenda. And we've talked a lot about education and jargon and all those things, but breaking it down into manageable, bite-size, plain English language.
Or of course, plain Welsh language as well.
Plain Welsh, yeah.
Because we are mandated to deliver that, and which brings me seamlessly on to my colleague, Paul. Closing thoughts from you?
Yeah, it's going to be education and awareness yet again from me. I think, and it's about having those conversations and having those conversations internally, having those conversations with brokers or centres, but something which we didn't really touch on, I don't think, today, but having the conversations with your own supply chain as well, because that's often a sort of attack vector. So I chuck that as a subject right in the closing moments. But yeah, it is just about talking these things through and making sure everybody understands and recognises the risks and vulnerabilities associated with them.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thanks, Paul. And I guess kind of round things off, I would hope that this isn't the end of the conversation. We all close down the screens and that's that few job done. I think if there is an appetite to continue the conversation, I'm very happy to come back together and do that. But certainly just on that kind of one-to-one basis, I think I'm looking for body language, but I'm certainly hearing from presenters here that we're up for collaboration. If there are conversations to be had that can support, then let's have those separately and outside. And certainly from Paul's perspective and mine, then we're really kind of happy to try and keep spreading the gospel and telling people this important thing and explaining to them what it means and how they move forward. So if we can do that for you, we'll pass some details out following the event, of course, and then please do get in touch. Okay, folks, that could be, unless body language tells me that someone's got a desperately urgent last thought, that could be 8 minutes left for toilet trips, lunch, and the niceties of having a break. I'm not sure if that's entirely ECHR compliant, but it might be all you get. Thank you so much for joining us and for the activity in chat, because I think it's really helped. I think it's a really important conversation, and if we can support you, please don't hesitate to ask. Very much here for that. So thanks to the panelists, thanks to everybody for joining us, and hopefully we'll be in touch soon. All the best. Cheers.
Thank you.